Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Naturally Prosperous Woman podcast. I am once again so excited to be here with you. I have a very special guest that I am so excited to drop into. I was on her podcast a few weeks ago, and it's so nice when you have guests that have a similar embodied wisdom, and you can kind of pull from each other and bounce things back and forth. And there's a really beautiful synergy and activation that happens. And so this week I have Jacqueline Hyacinth. She's a mother mystic, feminine embodiment mentor. And we're gonna see where this conversation goes a bit, but we will be talking about feminine life cycles of initiation. I want to drop into a little bit of the perimenopause conversation and what this means for us who are stepping into midlife and how we can really harness the power, I feel, that's available through the crone initiation. So welcome, Jacqueline. I'm super excited to dive in. Is there any other introduction that you'd love to give the audience, or do you want to just dive in?
Hi, Tara. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I really love the shared synchronicities and the wisdom that is imparted between women. So I'm all
Yeah,
for it. It's so delicious. So thank you for
yeah,
creating this time.
absolutely.
Yeah. And as far as anything to add, I'll just say I am here to strengthen, support, and uplift and nourish women into remembering who they are in their cyclical wisdom and to harness the power and the magic of their lineages, their souls, their ancestry to completely and totally rebirth themselves into the primal divine expression of divinity that they are and to live it, embody it, and fill this planet with the grace it is so desperately seeking it. So
Mhm.
I'm here for all of those things.
Beautiful. And here we are too on the cusp of the spring equinox, there's
Mm.
all this like rebirth energy coming forward, speaking about, cycles and being in tune with our own rhythms and cycles. It actually feels so timely. Actually, this podcast will come out exactly next week,
Awesome.
um, in the equinox energy. So this is actually really perfect. So one of the first questions, and there's so many things that I want to dive into, but one of the first questions that I love to ask is, where did your sacred path, where did your awakening journey really start to open? And I know for some of us, we've been on this journey for quite a long time, but yeah.
Mm. To be honest, I feel like it really started to fill me during motherhood. And I became a mother very young. I was a teenage mother, so I became pretty full with life by 17. So that embodiment, that all the distortions and everything that I was facing as a teenager, right, compiled with motherhood was like the breaking point of a massive initiation for me into who I was becoming. And so for me, it was like really the veil started to part profoundly in motherhood. Just that shaking in the body of like morphing into something more.
hmm Yeah,
So
absolutely.
powerful.
It's so interesting too that happened at such a young age for you and that you've been able to like pull from that wisdom along your path. I mean, I think we're similar in age,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
48. Yeah.
right. For me, if I'm just going to speak to this a little bit, but it's my path kind of opened around the same time, although I didn't drop into like my sacred work until
Yeah, me
maybe
neither.
motherhood actually in my 30s. But for me, it was like leaving like a home that was full of like trauma and my mother had went through her second marriage. My sister was really struggling with her own stuff, and I was really feeling the trauma of that, and then wanting to find my way around the age of 19 and leaving home and feeling a sense of abandonment and knowing that maybe I had a bigger purpose but not knowing what that was. And then I found Christian Northrup's book at that age. And in there, it talked about the moon cycles. And I feel like emotional talking about this because it was that piece that when I was like, oh, the moon, this is like 26 years ago.
Yeah.
People weren't talking so much about this, not where I lived. And it was finding the moon and working with the cycles that actually allowed me to heal. And it brought me back home to myself. And it took a couple of years. I remember being 24 and being like, I am different. Like I feel healed. And it became a magical piece at different, it still is, but even with motherhood, your center of gravity kind of changes. And it was the lunar cycles that took me like, through this metamorphosis and this rebirth and brought me deeper into who I was as a woman.
Mm.
So just, speaking about cycles,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, go ahead if that
absolutely.
sparks anything for you. Yeah.
So what I want to say for me personally is like, which these threads that are carrying us throughout our entire lives, right? So like through our young adulthood, and we notice we're different from our families, right? Or and there's all these different like pieces that are threads that are leading us somewhere. Um, and so, I mean, coming deep into the sacred, it didn't happen really. I mean, everything was sacred. It was a sacred mess. But as far as it
Right.
actually
Yeah.
being like fully like starting to come online for me cognitively, spiritually at every level, it was probably about, 14 years ago. But all of this weaving, like this deep longing to come into something more, like sexuality was like a obviously very online, very young for me, distorted in so many ways, but just all of these threads were part of that, remembering that this is not actually, this is what I'm going through, but there is a more sacred way to do it. And even in that, I knew
Mhm.
it then. I
Mhm.
knew that having a baby young, like I really had a very sensorial experience, that there was something spiritually very like online for me then, even
Mhm.
while I was in the cusp of like just being wild and and sowing oats and moving through this world. But it's like then it all softened and solidified probably about 14 years ago. And that awakening was much more like conscious, like stepping into meditation and dropping in and then starting to learn and then opening up my my senses to receive life and like receive myself finally
Mhm.
fully, and like
Mhm.
just been dancing with that ever since.
That's so beautiful. I would say the same for me 14 years ago. It was when my daughter was born 14 years ago. Yeah, like my sacred path. Like I'd had, some foundation to, I guess, a bigger sense of my purpose, but like the really deep, like
Yeah,
sacred work came through the initiation of motherhood. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about like really harnessing the power of these feminine life cycles of initiation, because they take us deeper into the truth of who we are and the bigger scope of oftentimes our purpose and our calling. We don't live in a society, though, that typically honors these gateways of initiation. And I know when we were talking before we hopped on to the podcast, we were talking about menstruation. Like that's like one of the first, doorways of like feminine initiation that often, really isn't honored in society. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I would love to speak to that. First,
Yeah.
as somebody, when I was younger, I love to tell this story. Like my father, I saw when I was younger, my father gave my sister flowers on the onset of her menstruation. And so I had that like in my periphery. She's 4 years older than me. So I was like, oh my God, when I'm old enough, my dad's going to get me flowers. Unfortunately, my father had passed by then. So those flowers didn't come, but I had that in my psyche, like from young, these little threads of like, I know that this is important and I want to be like, I'm excited to be older. I'm excited to bleed. I'm excited to become a woman. So
Mm-hmm.
I had that at least in my bandwidth. Um, but these, we underestimate. First, we must know as women now. If we don't, let's just anchor it. Society, we have to live from the inside out. We have got to understand that the society that we live in is upside down, and that it will never fully celebrate, honor, from the truth, because we cannot expect anything outside of us to understand what we ourselves are here to understand, right? So just like
Right.
really honoring that from jump, like you and me acknowledging, embodying, and embracing our feminine wisdom is such a powerful, important legacy for this world, because it is literally anchoring and setting precedent for other women to just have in their field of experience, to be able to
Mhm.
look at and see like, wow, out of the 90% of people on the planet, I mean, the fact that women are just starting to now come in and tune in and realize like, wow, our menstruation is such an important and pivotal time for us to bring life force energy or bring
Mhm.
balance and stability. Like our elements come online in such a profound way and destabilize us in many ways. But it's all this emerging of Shakti, this life force energy, that kind of brings us into this rhythm and tune of sound that our soul is going to cyclically move through for our entire lives. And I like to think that um, the way that we cycle, right, it builds on our experiences and our initiation. So in also in the same way that we begin, our journey into motherhood. And so everything is like consistently growing inside of us and shaping us. And the good news is that because of the unique power and the audacity and brilliance of the divine, that anything that has not been um, centered in the heart, right? Or well, we didn't fully get to engage in our experiences because we weren't spiritually attuned yet or awakened. We can
Mhm.
bring those filaments in now and really
Mhm.
like I do recapitulation ceremonies with women where I take them back into their
Mm.
first menstruation. Like we can really, even to birth, like when you have a less than satisfactory birth experience, right? And like reattune. Just today, I worked with a client on reconnecting her from a C-section, and she felt like
Mm.
she was separate from her children. Like, so everything is perfect, and
Mm.
it doesn't always feel that way. And that's
Right.
part of the learning and the growing. But how magical that we have this place, like the connection and the love is always there. And so everything we're experiencing in our lives as women, everything is like good soil still. Like we can still use it. It's still growing us, healing us, and maturing us
Mm.
into like a fuller, richer experience that it's like a journey.
Yes. Yes. So I love that. And especially with the Akashic records, and I've often like a big part of how I guide women through transformation. The Akashic records are a tool, but my point is that it's through these life initiations. They often reach these gateways. And part of the work that we do is like to gather the gifts and the lessons
Mhm.
of the past experiences and challenges so that we can harness what's available in these really pivotal points on our path and not carry it forward as like heavy baggage or like a lump on our shoulder. That's not the right phrase, but rather take the time to like mulch it up. And I love how you said everything is good soil. It really is. It can be so woven into the foundation from which we can grow deeper in our roots and then flourish in a bigger expression of the woman that we were born to be. And I think that is so for anyone listening, I think it's like so important that we take the pause, that we take the time, and to really, do the work to cultivate a deeper understanding so that we can turn that into gold, so we
Mhm.
can really turn it into wisdom. I think that's an important part too of like perimenopause and the crone initiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
our whole lives we're gathering, and like you, even the retrospect, like to say what you're beautifully expressing right now, like to really make that high alchemy and to be able to look at like, or
Mm.
what could also be like turning lemons into lemonade, right? Like
Totally.
really looking at the trajectory of the beauty of our lives and forgiving over and over again. Like there's so much compassion and forgiveness that I'm still, working in my own roots, right?
Totally. Yes.
Consistently, because not even necessarily because of me, but or for you, but we are
Mhm.
coming from lineages that have carried these, all these different fruits that are still germinated and connected with our own souls. So we're like, when we do this pruning and this
Mhm.
deep retrospective work, we are like really releasing and healing generations and generations, as well as our own soul, and bringing refuge and grace and peace to so many other women who came before us, who were at unrest in themselves. So the fact that
Totally.
we even have enough time, because we have internet and because of the nature of our lifestyle now, to do this, it's for us to do. Like our
And the
ancestors were
freedom.
busy with cattle and
Mhm.
getting water, and like they were using their hands in such a different way. And we have
Right.
this time to be like washing and alchemizing, and we do it for us. And it is a benefit to our families and to the collective, just by taking enough time to love ourselves.
Yeah. I think that's like so, again, important that we distinguish that because, oftentimes working with women, I'm sure myself included, where we apologize like for doing the work and to take up space and to take the time to do the deep work, to
Mm,
shift our internal experience, to shift the trajectory of our path into more of a deeper space of fulfillment and purpose. And also I see where women push up against that with the mother wound,
yeah.
where there's that sense of like, well, and it's deep, and we have like a root entanglement, and we don't necessarily feel like we should be allowed to have the time and the freedom and the fulfillment because our lineage didn't. It's not a logical thing. We just like literally will like kind of like sit back and not necessarily say yes to the deeper pull to prune and then move forward into a bigger expression of who we're being called to be. And yet, when we do honor that, when we do take the time, like I've seen it, working with women in the records, like the timeline healing, the from the lineage.
Ah,
Like it's quite amazing. Like it's like, thank you for moving forward. And sometimes women will be trapped in the grief and the pain of their lineage, not realizing that, they have the choice to say yes to deeper fulfillment and to themselves, and that therein lies the power.
yeah.
Yeah, that's an
I just,
important.
it's
Go
so
ahead.
important, and it makes me want to just go in and take a deep breath inside and honor your work and my work. And, sometimes we can take it for granted. Like the
Yeah.
fact, right? Like it's so beautiful that we're here and that we have
Hmm.
these spaces, because everybody has the power essentially, but if you don't know you have it, and you don't know you have an opportunity or a choice to make, if you don't have that ma, which is like how we refer to us, like mothers of the new time, that are
Right.
opening up the space to another sister, another woman that's coming in to say, here is an opportunity for you, because the
Hmm.
world is literally mirroring mediocrity. Like it's saying, eh, watch the news, stay the same, you know, pretend you're somebody you're not, dress up and gallivant and contort
Yeah.
yourself to fit in. And so
Hmm.
when you have women that are like moving through that terrain and saying, no, I love you, be true to you, be who you are, open yourself up, flower with me, flower
Hmm.
beside me, it is
Hmm.
like yeah, makes my heart just, what a gift. What a gift. So
Hmm.
freaking thank you.
Yes, and thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm like loving this. And that is really being highlighted in my awareness right now of like the importance of the work and hearing you and the work you're doing. And I'm like, yes, it's so powerful. And I think we can just sometimes forget and get lost even in like the socials and like, I don't know, just like the the business jargon and that there's something deeper often that we're called into in terms of our power and our expression and our freedom as women. And I do feel like sometimes that gets missed and we override it. And yet there is it's such a beautiful key piece to our evolution when we're wanting more freedom. So it's not necessarily about the next strategy or about money, that our freedom can exist in these places of going deep within ourselves and healing and unlocking deeper wisdom and freedom for our sacred path.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That. I love that. And I'm going to tie that in now too, to like perimenopause. And I'm still
Yeah.
a, I'm still a bleeding mama. And it
Hmm.
feels important to say, once you touch the fragrance of yourself, like once you understand from a psychological, spiritual perspective of what it means to be gifted with a female body in this lifetime, to have the spiritual prowess and the power to be the hands of the mother in this particular way. Like once it's really understood, then you
Mm-hmm.
start to acknowledge your blood and like walk with it. Like now it is so sacred to me. Like it's never actually not been, but it's obviously really pronounced now because now I know. And every cycle that comes, and she's still here, and I'm like, yes, what are we gonna do this month, Mom? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and like working with her. But I know that this timeline will shift. And so
Mm-hmm.
every time I'm bleeding, I'm like aware, like honor this time
Mm-hmm.
because this time is going to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And I welcome that next cycle. But for now, it's just really important, right? Like that we're part of a process on the planet where women get to even say that with like, not everybody's saying that. Like,
Yeah.
not everybody feels this way. A lot of women are still like feeling victimized by having their cycle because it's painful or
Absolutely.
and with respect for all of them, like we're all having very diverse experiences. But
Absolutely.
my personal one is like, oh my God, thank you for this nectar. I couldn't.
Yeah.
And so like this is part of that training ground and learning. All these cycles of this entire life have been preparing me for the next pathway, which will be, oh my God, which I don't even know what will look like, but to just hold all that wisdom
Mm-hmm.
that has been walking through me, walking through my people, walking through my consciousness, and just bring this like restorative power onto this
Mm-hmm.
planet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, it's such a gift. And it's like we don't know what it looks like. So we're walking into terrain that is new to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that the perimenopause and menopause conversation is becoming so predominant, like even in the mainstream.
Hmm.
I do feel like there's the potential for like, an army of midlife women to really grab a hold of the power of the transformation that's available through this aging journey of, reclaiming our golden throne, reclaiming, our elder wisdom, and to really rise as community leaders. And I think that's, for me, I just feel passionate about like it can be more than our symptoms, and it can be more. It's an invitation. The whole time was an invitation to become more. Like we step into, our wise woman, the crowned one, or the crone, but the crowned one. And so it's like the more that we can really drop in, do the work to pare away the old, and to really look at what this journey can mean for us, especially important for me too, in this just kind of at the edge of the perimenopausal journey, still bleeding, but I'm aware, 46, it's coming. And I've, journeyed with many women through that crone initiation. And there's just so much power there um, in terms of our golden years,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Mm.
know sometimes, talking to women, it can feel a little bit heavy midlife. Like sometimes we're carrying around some of the old gunk and the old baggage, and we forget that we have enormous potential and purpose still coming. And so there's that invitation to like, what does this journey get to mean to you? How can you harness the power of it? And know that really, the crone initiation is the call to rise in your leadership, right? To rise in your leadership, to start to cycle all that wisdom back to the younger generations. Yeah, it's so powerful.
So powerful. You speak really beautifully about it. I feel so enlivened and excited. Even the consciousness that we're talking about right now, this beauty of honoring life. I mean, our society, as we, it does not honor eldership. It does not, it has not shown us that aging into womanhood is what it is. And it's the backside. So we are bringing this higher calling, this higher knowing. And what it looked like for our mothers is going to be different than what it looks like for us. And it is a conscious choice. And
Mhm. Mhm.
right. And so just leaning into that. And even now, as we are, as like kind of going back to the cycles, we are preparing, right, in strength
Mhm.
for how we're even going to do that. Like, how is our body and our morphogenic field, how are we going to morph through that
Mhm.
phase, and how we're laying down that groundwork and nourishing ourselves and spiritually, like, preparing ourselves so that whatever it's going to be, like, that we have everything we need within for us to cultivate what it is that our soul is longing to experience
Mhm.
here, and to
Mhm.
just like really get on board and drop into that and surround yourselves with wise ones who are also doing that very thing,
Mhm.
right? Because again, just, and this is the beauty of womanhood. It's the
Yeah.
beauty of spiritual paths, of knowing you have teachers and wisdom carriers and elders. There's always somebody who has been through it that puts a hand out, and that
Mhm.
we can trust in our own wisdom and take the hand. So like,
Mhm.
looking at, we're moving into terrain that is like foreign for us, so to speak,
Mhm.
right? And so women journey with us through different phases of their cycles, and then we'll be journeying with other women. This is what we do as women, as sisters. And
Mhm.
you and me, our generation, I don't know if you have a lot of wise elders. As far as in my life, I have like one or two female elders that has been walking a traditionally like feminine spiritual path. So there's
Mhm.
not a lot of us. So we are essentially
Mhm.
are feeling the call to rise into that embodied eldership, even while we're
Mhm.
carrying the mother, right? Like, so we're going to be leading and segueing on this planet a very
Mhm.
powerful reality of implementing the return on both ends, of like taking the hand of the mother and the maiden and the elder
Mhm.
at the same time, and bringing it all into fruition, onto this, into the consciousness now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Powerful. Yeah, I love it. I just want to speak to this last piece, and I think one of the reasons I'm so passionate about the crone initiation is because we live in a very youth obsessed society. Like, it's all backwards. Like, women innately become, and it's a paradigm shift to know this truth for ourselves, but that we become more beautiful, more powerful, more wisdom filled, right? And so we really have to, it's a conscious choice, but to navigate those paradigm shifts, because it was meant to devalue and to take away the power of the aging woman, when in fact, it's like where we come into the beauty of our prime. So yeah, I just wanted to share that and to kind of see that into the conversation. That might mean something to some of our viewers. I hope it does. It's definitely a passion piece for me, but I loved this conversation. I have goosebumps. I'm going to hand it over to you though, and I just want to, check in and just see if there's anything else on your heart that you'd like to share, and then also where listeners can find you. And if you don't know off the top of your head, I'll drop the links below in the show notes. But yeah, go ahead, Jacqueline.
All right. Thank you so much. So let me just drop in and see if there's anything else that wants to be shared around that. And I just want to say right now, I just want to invite everyone who will be listening to this to just really drop in, tune in, and just take all of the soil of your life, all of your soil, from when you were in your mother's belly to when you were a toddler to
Mm.
you being in art class at school. Just take all of the energies, the expressions that are coming through, and just wrap your love around your life. Just extend yourself so fully around every experience you've ever touched or has touched you, and just pull it towards you. and give thanks and pull it into your heart and just really drop in and honor and acknowledge that every piece of this was part of you coming home to a greater part of you, and every expression has been important, and just put it up to your face and kiss it and just really appreciate your life and your experiences and honor that all of them are here now alive in you, and that moving forward you get to make a decision about who you're going to be and open the space to your divine feminine intelligence to come online and awaken in you. Call forth your guides, call forth me, call forth Tara, call forth the divine sustenance that you need to be strengthened and supported to walk your path with greater support, grace, and empower. And
Oh,
then
I felt
just give yourself
okay.
a
Go
super
ahead.
bow.
Sorry.
That's okay. And just
Yes.
yes, and just give yourself the super bow and give yourself bow in respect for yourself and your journey.
Mm.
Just give reverence and respect where it's due, because don't expect it from anybody else. You have to start giving it to yourself. That is what women do. And we're learning and growing every day. So then just give yourself a hug and a bow and just lean in and be with what comes up. And yeah, I just want to say thank you, Tara. I'm so grateful for this reflection and this time with you. It's super powerful and beautiful, and I'm honored. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love this. Yeah. There's so many layers of wisdom here. I think this is something you could probably listen to a few times and it may activate different layers or insights or clarity for you. Um, but, take a listen and do join us in the Naturally Prosperous Woman Facebook group. If that speaks to you, we'd love to hear from you. I will make sure and drop Jacqueline's links below. And just off the top of your head, off the top of your
Out of
hair,
my hair.
where
Uh,
can, yeah, where can
Thank
people
you.
find you?
You can find me at ourfemininelegacy.com, and I offer training courses and support for women to come on home. So, Our Feminine Legacy. Thank you so much, Tara.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye for now.